Good evening. I'll start by playing you the first tune I ever learned back in the early 1970s, about 100 years after Alvin Dwinell was playing fiddle as a young man here in Walpole. I'd like to quickly explain the structure of a fiddle tune. Typically there are two parts, the A part and the B part. And we repeat each part, so the sequence is A, A, B, B. And typically the A part is on the lower notes of the violin, and the B part is on the upper, higher notes of the violin. So here is the first tune I ever learned. It's called The Bluebird. We find that Alvin was born to Benjamin and Luceba Dwinell in 1845. Traditional music was already in the family and in the town of Walpole. Alvin's father, Benjamin, was a fiddler, and a contemporary of Benjamin was Asa Titus, also a fiddler and a dancing master. In 1867, when Alvin was 22 years old, he and his father bought 39 acres, which was the north part of Boggy Meadow Farm. This rich farmland included about 2 acres that was set aside by the Dwinells for growing tobacco. Alvin began keeping a diary that year, and I will read excerpts from his entries between 1870 and about 1880. What music did Alvin play on his violin? Traditional jigs, reels, and hornpipes. The tunes used for dancing. The dances at that time were line dances, also called contra dances, and quadrilles or squares. These same tunes and dances are still done today in parts of southwest New Hampshire, passed down from one generation to the next, including in the town of Walpole, where there have been contra dances in the town hall and the beautiful ballroom of Hastings House. Where in Walpole did he and his father play? Well, almost daily at his home. During these years, there were dancing schools in the town hall, Howard Hall, or the academy. These schools always ended with a grand ball. Dances were held in homes, at Taunt's Tavern in Drewsville, and at Burt Hall, not far from the Dwinell homestead. On January 12, 1871, Alvin wrote in his diary, "We worked all day trying to start the water but did not succeed, likely frozen pipes. I went to the village in the evening and got the mail. I received music from Boozy and Company, New York." Then on January 21st, he wrote that he received a music book in the mail from Elias Howe. Now, Howe was a fiddler and a publisher of popular tune books based in Boston. And quite some time ago, I acquired my own original Elias Howe book, printed in 1851. This evening I will play selected tunes from Howe's book, which I suspect were ones that Alvin Dwinell learned and played 150 years ago. And here's what this handset music looks like. Lots of jigs and reels and hornpipes. So here's a tune out of Howe's book, The New Century Hornpipe. Saturday, February 19th, 1870, he writes, Father, Lizzie, mother went down to Orris's in the afternoon. And that would be Oris Dwinell, who was Alvin's uncle. I went down in the evening and we fiddled and played euchre. Some of you will know that card game. I played it quite often when I was a kid. The next month, he wrote, I bottomed a pair of shoes. Fernando and Orlando came up in the evening and we practiced a while. So these two were children of Moses and Mary Elliott, probably about the same age as Alvin, and this shows they may have formed a band. Here's a tune from the Howe book that Alvin would have played, and it's still quite popular today. It's called Chorus Jig. Horse jig. In November 1870, Alvin wrote, there was a ball in the evening at the tavern hall. No regular bill was charged at the ball. Refreshments were furnished free, and the hat was passed around among the dancers for the collection of the bill for music. A band of 6 people perpetrated the music. I doubt if that hall was ever jammed so full of people before. There were twice as many as could dance at once, and it was so crowded that it was about impossible to dance at all. I danced all that I wanted to, however, and had a good time. Another entry in that month goes like this. Dunshee called in the morning and engaged us to fiddle tonight at Widow Rust's. Father went to the village in the morning and engaged to do some plowing. He went down and borrowed Horace's plow. In the afternoon, he went up and plowed. In the evening, we went down to the dance. The company was small but lively. Had a good time. So here's another tune from the Howe book that Alvin might well have played back in his day. It's called Speed the Plow. Here is Alvin's rather shocking entry for Friday, December 2nd, 1870. Our band performed at Bert's tonight. There was a big company out and we had a splendid time. Only one thing occurred to mar the pleasure of the evening. Orlando got beastly drunk and tried to fight, but he was soon stilled and got well sobered before the party broke up. According to the Walpole history book, in 1873, a temperance meeting was held at the Walpole Town Hall with over 100 in attendance. So there was growing concern about the consumption of alcohol and attendant troubles. Now, one of the reform organizations founded in America in the 1800s was the Order of Good Templars, devoted to temperance or total abstinence. And I found this passage in George Aldrich's book, Walpole as It Was and Is, 1749 to 1870. On the evening of March 21, 1876, a meeting was held in the parlor of the Congregational Church for the purpose of organizing a lodge of the Order of Good Templars. At that meeting, 23 citizens were present, both male and female. And they hold regular weekly meetings. In connection with the temperance features of the order, they have a dramatic association, a class in oratory, a literary and debating club, and select readings to furnish entertainment at their meetings. And I find that among the founding members of the Order of Good Templars were Benjamin and Alvin Dwinell. And sure enough, in Howe's, we found the ever-popular reel, the Temperance Reel, a tune that I learned first about 50 years ago. this entry on January 6, 1871. Orlando called and left our paper. We all went to Bert's to the housewarming. Mrs. Clark played with us on a melodeon. There was a tremendous turnout. The house was full and running over. The old folks were right in their dance. So the melodeon is a reed instrument, no strings, with reeds made of metal that vibrate. They are often made to be very loud, which tends to overpower more delicate instruments like fiddles. Now, the word melodeon is, of course, derived from the word melody. However, in Alvin's diary entry, he misspells the word melodeon by substituting the letter A for the letter E, so it appears in his diary as malodion. Of course, mal is a prefix meaning bad. Wonder if this was a bit of wit from Alvin in pranking Mrs. Clark and her melodeon. At any rate, I'll use my reed instrument, the accordion, to play the next couple of tunes. And these come from Alvin's hand-lettered sheet music, the only bits of sheet music found in his voluminous diary. And I've transcribed these tunes exactly as he wrote them out. So first I'll play only the melody as Alvin wrote it, and then I'll add some chords to fill out the sound. Now this first tune is a march in 2/4 time, and he didn't write a title for it, so I'm going to call it Dwinell's March. The second tune that Alvin wrote out is in 6/8 time, so it's a jig, and again there's no title that he gave to it, so I'm going to call it Alvin's Jig. So in September, on Monday, September 7th, 1872, Alvin is now 27 years old, and he wrote, "I finished pulling onions. Charles Hines and Mr. Spaulding came in the evening with cornet and clarinet, and we musicked extensively. They can't play much." Later on a Friday, that same month, he wrote, "I made cigars and fiddled." And in late December, played euchre, fiddled and danced, and had a good time. From a history of Walpole, we find that in 1870, Levi Burt built his house with an L in the southwest part of town. Upstairs in the L was a dance hall. The ceiling went up to the peak of the roof, from which there were hanging lamps. Sounds like an elegant room. And I searched the back roads of Walpole and found where Bert's house stood, but all that remains is a cellar hole. In early 1873, Alvin wrote, "We went to Bert's at night and played music per agreement. Big company, little room, jam, poor oysters badly cooked, worse cheese, hard scrape, and medium cider. $4 in, $5 worth of muscular force and nervous energy out." And in his journal, Alvin underlined the word out. So here's an interesting, very Celtic or Irish sounding march that we find in Howe's book. It's called Bonaparte Crossing the Rhine. I've known this tune for quite some time. When I visited Ireland in 2018 and stopped at a little pub in County Clare to hear the local musicians, this was one of the tunes they played. Thursday, January 30th, 1873. Clear and cold. I think it was the coldest morning I ever saw. The mercury ranged from 30 to 36 below zero in this vicinity. I froze my nose doing the chores, though I wasn't out more than 20 minutes. It was awful. In early November of 1873, Alvin wrote, "Frank and I stopped to the hall where a dance was in progress under the auspices of the Academy's scholars. Britton, Webster, Burge, and Wright perpetrated the music. The company was small, but sufficiently noisy. I forbear to say anything of the music. Got home about midnight." Now, perhaps after growing up surrounded by fiddle music and practicing so much as a young man, Alvin had high standards for how the tunes should sound. And here from Howe's is a very well-known New England fiddle tune that he might have played, and it's called Steamboat Quick Step. step. On October 30th, 1880, is this entry. The Wentworth home was burned this evening. We noticed the light of the fire at about 8 o'clock, and Father and I drove up. The fire caught in the barn in the hay, and of course spread rapidly. We arrived before the main hotel had got fairly to burning, the barns burning down first. Nearly all the furniture was saved. The post office and Owen's store were saved only by hard work. It rained hard all the time, which was fortunate. If it had been dry and clear, the main part of the village must have been burned in spite of all that could have been done. I worked until nearly exhausted. We learned from the Walpole history book that in 1888 there was a fireman's ball in the town hall with 75 couples in attendance, possibly to raise revenue for the all-important fire department. A tune originating in the 19th century and still played today is Fireman's Reel. And at the dances held during the summers in Fitzwilliam in recent memory, one of the popular contra dances was always done to this tune. And I'll go back to the box and play one of the tunes Alvin wrote out by hand. It's called Will There Be Any Stars in My Crown? And he put that title in, and I discovered that it's a hymn written in 1897 by Eliza Hewitt of Philadelphia, and is still today a favorite gospel song played by bluegrass bands. Alvin Dwinell was an only child and he never married. By 1907, both of his parents had died, and he lived alone on the family farm until his death in 1923. Alvin's devotion to his parents, to the farm with its hard work and endless chores, to his obvious love of fiddling and dancing, to faithfully keeping a diary that we can read and gain an honest and pure glimpse into Walpole history. All of these, I suggest, are the stars in Alvin's crown. Thank you.